I am continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around just a little bit as I move along. Right now, I just read the first half of 2 Samuel chapter 12, where Nathan revealed David's sins with Bathsheba and the murder of Uriah. He reveals it to him and declares God's judgment. So we will pick this up here. This will begin in verse 15. And Nathan departed unto his house, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. David therefore besought God for the child. And David fasted, and went in, and lay all night upon the earth. And the elders of his house arose, and went to him to raise him up from the earth. But he would not. Neither did he eat bread with them. And it came to pass on the 7th day that the child died. And the servants of David feared to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, Behold, while the child was yet alive, he spake unto him, and he would not hearken unto our voice. Now we spake unto him, and he would not hearken unto our voice. How will he then vex himself if we tell him that the child is dead? But when David saw that his servants whispered, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said unto his servants, Is the child dead? And they said, He is dead. Then David arose from the earth, and washed, and anointed himself, and changed his apparel, and came into the house of the Lord, and worshipped. Then he came to his own house, and when he required, they set bread before him, and he did eat. Then said his servants unto him, What thing is this that thou hast done? Thou didst fast and weep for the child while it was alive, but when the child was dead, thou didst rise and eat bread. So this is the thing. It appears that David, once he knows the child's dead, David isn't mourning anymore. He was fasting, he was praying, child dies, oh well. It seems very cavalier, very careless, or very, he doesn't really care about the child. Child's dead, oh well. He's not mourning like he's supposed to be. That's what they're confused on his action. Why were you acting like that when the child was only sick, but now you're not mourning that he's dead? Verse 22. And he said, While the child was yet alive, I fasted and wept. For I said, Who can tell whether God will be gracious to me, that the child may live? But now he is dead. Wherefore should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. So, this is David's acknowledgement of God's justice in part here. So, I was fasting and praying, hoping that God would hear me and spare the child. I know he's not going to anymore. Fasting and praying isn't going to do any good anymore. He's dead. And I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. In other words, in death I will see him again, but he will never be my child again. David knew that he had lost everything. David understood the full consequence. And I think it was at the death of his child he really understood this. He's like, he's not mine anymore. I've lost him permanently, not just in this life, but forever. He will never be mine again. It's as a father, there's nothing more heart-wrenching than the thought that my children will not be my children anymore. When I know the glorious, just the incomprehensible joy of being a family, and then to have to think that I've lost them. And this is what David's feeling. David knows that he no longer is their father. They can't be his anymore. They're still his children in life, in mortality, but once mortality is over, he no longer has his family. Let's finish this out here. Verse 24. And David comforted Bathsheba his wife, and went in unto her, and lay with her. And she bare a son, and he called his name Solomon. And the Lord loved him. And he sent by the hand of Nathan the prophet, and he called his name Jedediah, because of the Lord. And Joab fought. It's interesting that Nathan gives him a different name. Now, everybody, he's known as Solomon. I don't know what Jedediah means. I might look it up, but it's interesting that Nathan calls him by a different name. And already, even at his birth, or probably a little after his birth, you have the prophet blessing him, that he is loved by the Lord, that this is a choice son. But anyways, verse 26. And Joab fought against Rabbah of the children of Ammon, and took the royal city. And Joab sent messengers to David, and said, I have fought against Rabbah, and have taken the city of waters. Now therefore gather the rest of the people together, and encamp against the city, and take it, lest I take the city, and it be called after my name. And David gathered all the people together, and went to Rabbah, and fought against it, and took it. And he took their king's crown from his head, the weight whereof was a talent of gold, with the precious stones. And it was set on David's head, and he brought forth the spoils of the city in great abundance. And he brought forth the people that were therein, and put them under saws, and under harrows of iron, and under axes of iron, and made them pass through the brick kiln. And thus did he unto all the cities of the children of Ammon. So David and all the people returned unto Jerusalem. Now, this story is this ending of the war with Ammon is interesting. Because first, Joab was the one that actually conquered the city. He brought the city to its knees. And when it was ripe for conquering, when it was about to fall, he sends to David and says, look, if you want me to you better get out here, or I'm going to get the credit for taking the city. See, remember David, he sent Joab out with the army, and he stayed back in Jerusalem. That was his first mistake. But now he rides out to take the credit of the battle, take the credit of the conquest. But we also get this very cruel death, putting them under the saw, under the harrow. The harrow, that's the plowing. That's the blade on a plow that digs up the dirt. These are brutal, cruel deaths that he is subjecting the people to. Now, there's just a few other things that it is such a sad story. This whole thing is just pitiful. But first of all, let's consider. David was 30 years old when he became king. There were 7.5 years that he was king only of Judah, and then he became king of all Israel. We then have all these conquests going on. So he's probably in his mid-40s at the time of the events, of the time of his affair with Bathsheba. He's probably in his early to mid-40s at this time. Now he dies when he's 70 years old, which means that Solomon, who was born at this time, would be in his mid-20s when David dies. But then in chapter 11, it made this statement here. Let me look this up again. It said in chapter 11 here, verse 1, right? Came to pass after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle. See, in the Middle East, in most places really, weather dictates when you can actually go to war. Now, you have wars year-round, but it's not common. Most of the time, you have a certain kind of season that kings prepare to go out to war. It's like in the northern hemisphere, like in Europe and in America, it's summer. Most of the time, you wait the winter out, even like in the American Revolution. You wait the winter out and you fight in the spring and summer. You don't fight during the winter because it's not good conditions for it. Which is why Washington crossing the Delaware was such a big deal at the time, because he did it in the winter. But that's what it's saying at the time that kings go out to war. So the year was expired. We've gone another year. Now it's the season for making war, and David sends his armies out. He has his affair with Bathsheba. The reason why you have the affair and the pregnancy. I mean, she had time to know that she was pregnant, which means she was probably at least 2 or 3 months along. The whole thing with Uriah, that Uriah had to come back from the fight, then go back. We're talking probably another month. I guess it wouldn't be that long. The distances aren't that far, but you kept a week or two. But you have the birth of the child. And it's after the child is born that Nathan comes and gives the parable and reveals David's sin. So we're talking 9 months at least. And then the child gets sick, and we have a whole week of him being sick. Now, the child is very young at this point. I don't think the child, a month, maybe 2. But this is all over the span of a year, approximately. This is all taking place over the span of a year. So we have the time of the kings going out to war. But this wasn't a continual fight. This was a siege. Joab besieged the city because the weather, it was not a good time for fighting. They would have put up a siege and kind of hunkered down during the season of the year. And then after all this takes place, like 10 months later, 12 months later, about a year, well, almost a year later, Joab then rises from the siege because it is once again the time for fighting. And he attacks the city, weakens it. It was already weak from the siege and everything. He is able to bring it to its knees, and David comes out to take the final credit. That's our timeline. That's how this all plays out. This is taking place over about a year. So I'm going to leave that here. My next video will be a more detailed analysis of the affair between David and Bathsheba, and then I will continue in my reading of 2 Samuel. So, just see you then.